What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Millsy, back with Hometown Commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew my version 1.0 deck list of the commander in front of us on my quest to brew the magic world. As always, that deck list is going to be down in the description for you below, as well as I'd really appreciate it if you could interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe, consider checking out the links in the description. I'd really appreciate it. Today, we're following up and keep going on some of these Foundations Jumpstarts commander. We're talking about Hurska Sweet Tooth, a Selesnya life gain commander. It says whenever Hurska attacks, we're going to make a food token, which of course we can sack to gain some life. And then whenever we gain life, we could pay a white or a green. And when we do, target creature gets +X/+X till end of turn, where X is the amount of life we've gained. This is a really interesting idea for a life gain commander. I mean, this isn't anything I would say new. There's a lot of different ways to approach life gain. In fact, in a few weeks, over the next few weeks, we'll talk about one or two more. But what I think is really interesting about Hurska is that it wants to attack, which we're going to get the food token. So we have that way to do that. We have the tokens matter stuff. We have the ability to care about life gains. So there's the life gain matter stuff. And then there's a lot of things that will put counters on things when we gain life. So we can kind of play with counters as well, kind of making this perfect trifecta of ways to take advantage and really get value from our things as our deck's doing the thing we want it to do. And I think that's interesting because it's going to allow us to just get more value off of each of our life gains. We obviously have other ways to make tokens. It's not just Hurska making the food tokens, but we can play into the food tokens as well. And I think this will allow us to get a good cross-section of all the value that we can get in the deck. And so even if one of these three matters, even if one of the three prongs of our attack fail, we still have options to keep the value train going and catch back up to the others. As far as life gain outlets goes, I think the easiest way to think about life gain outlets in this deck is Soul Sister type effects, right? We have a lot of creatures and things that can make creatures, and so I think gaining a life whenever a creature comes in is a really easy way to gain some life, trigger a bunch of things, and get the party going. So we're playing things like Daxos, Essence Ward, and Guide of Souls, all gaining a life whenever another creature comes in. Guide of Souls adds the fun of giving it energy. We can actually pay that energy, 3 of it, to give a creature 2 counters, and flying, a great way to actually start making a Hurska a threat over the mid to late game if we can keep Guide of Souls out and keep it going. We only get the 1 attack trigger each turn, so it's not like Guide of Souls can make everything we want flying. But the nice part of Guide of Souls is that we are giving that option down the line, and we can hold the energy until we want to do that. Prosperous Innkeeper and Soul Warden, of course, one of the cards that was a reason why we call them Soul Sisters. Again, more life being gained. Linden, I like the idea of. It says whenever a white creature you control attacks, you gain a life. I kind of like this idea because now we have other options to gain life. Attacking, and remember the life off attacking can get Hurska to trigger. But I kind of like the idea of that, attacking, getting life that way, and getting a bunch of individual triggers on the stack. Right, which is why I think the Soul Sisters are so good, is that some abilities just care about you gaining life in general, not how much life you gain, right? So if you're putting so many of these gains on the stack, let's say I bring 4 creatures in a turn, 4 separate life gain triggers could mean a lot of value on the back end where they're gaining 4, rather than playing, gaining 4 life at once. Soul's Attendant, one of the other classic Soul Sister effects. We're trying out Path of Bravery. Whenever your life total is greater than your starting life total, all of our creatures get +1/+1. And then whenever one or more creatures attack, you gain life equal to the number of attacking creatures. So a little bit different than Linden. Linden's just gaining us 1 for each. Path of Bravery is gaining us some for all. But again, still useful to turn attacking into life gain. And then a card that's going to tip off a teeny bit of some of the combos we have in the deck is Spike Feeder. Spike Feeder comes in with 2 +1/+1 counters on it. We can remove a counter from it to put a counter on another creature. But the big line of text on Spike Feeder we really care about is you can remove a counter from it to gain 2 life. We play lots of things in the deck that we're going to talk about that can turn life gain into counters, meaning we could technically, given our opponents not being able to interact, gain near infinite life with Spike Feeder. And it is something that's not that hard to set up and is a possibility, which we'll talk about a little bit later on our slides. But getting into going from how to get life gain to life gain mattering, here's where we start taking that life gain, right, and turning it up, and now starting to get value from it. Accomplished Alchemist can tap for X mana of any one color, where X is the amount of life you've gained this turn. So we can turn the amount of life we're gaining into more mana to do more things. Blossoming Bog Beast, whenever it attacks, gains us 2 life, and then gives all of our creatures +X/+X till end turn, where X is the number of life we gain this turn. I like Bog Beast as a nice potentially top end piece to start having our tokens hit hard. Kristen Sunmare is a token engine, beginning each end step. If we gain life that turn, we make a 5/5 horse. That's each turn. So if we can manage to gain life on everybody's turn, we could certainly do that, and it's going to be certainly helpful for us. Some of the Soul Sisters actually gain us life when any creature comes in, not just ours, so they can pair nice and well with Crested Sunmare. But here you go. Here is a slide of 3 creatures that where we gain life put counters on themselves. So Lunda's Hierophant, Essence Channeler, and Exemplar of Light. And all 3 of them are going to do this different ways. Hierophant is going to put the counters on herself. And then when she dies, we get a bunch of 1/1 vampires with the lifelink, where X is equal to its power. So we can turn a big creature with a bunch of counters on it, if somebody kills it, into a bunch of 1/1s with lifelink that can then proc more life triggers. Essence Channeler is just going to get bigger. When it dies, we can put all of its counters on another creature. And as long as we've lost life this turn, it has flying and vigilance, but otherwise it's just going to keep getting bigger. And then Exemplar of Light gets that counter on it, but then whenever the first counter gets put on it each turn, we draw cards. So you can see that there's some different ways to pay off these creatures that just get counters whenever we gain a life. But I think one of the big engine pieces, one of the big combo pieces, you're going to notice in a lot of decks up this vein is Heliod Suncrown, a 3-mana god that says whenever you gain life, you put a counter on a creature or enchantment you control it. This is one half of that Spike Feeder combo. And for 2 mana, you can also give a creature lifelink until end of turn. But Heliod pays off a lot of things. It's very helpful, indestructible, a little bit hard to remove for our opponents. And as we're gaining life, hopefully we can just start spreading these counters around and making our whole board a little bit bigger. Treebeard's another great one. And whenever we gain life, we put that many counters on it. So that's really nice because it can get big and it has trample and it has ward too. So it's a little bit hard to take care of, but it could be an attacking threat for us. And then my favorite of the whenever you gain life, put a counter on his cards is Voice of the Blessed, a 2-mana 2/2. That puts a counter on it whenever you gain life. When it hits 4 counters, it gets Flying Vigilance. And when it hits 10 counters, it has Indestructible. So a great way to make this big, get it in the air, start getting it attacking. It becomes a teeny bit harder to remove, right? Someone needs to exile it, not just destroy it when it gets to 10. But again, we want to get these threats down and get them growing so that they can become threats over the course of the game. Book of Exalted Deeds and Angelic Accord will both make tokens at the end of our turn if we've gained enough life. Angelic Accord actually does it on everyone's turn, whereas Book of Exalted Deeds just does it on our turn. But I think they're both still equally important to make some tokens. That way we can block. And the tokens are flying, so we do get that little bit of evasion. And then Cleric class actually can replace Heliod if you can get it up to level 2, putting a counter on target creature. But it actually does say whenever you gain a life, you gain that much life +1. So that's pretty cool. And then at level 3, we can reanimate something back and gain life equal to its toughness. So not a bad ability, but I think the key thing on Cleric class is, well, 1, getting extra life. And then 2, getting it up to level 2 so that you can kind of get another copy of that Heliod effect to really start interacting with the rest of our board. Gorman's Talent feels great here. This is from the Bloomburrow Commander deck from that Squirrel deck. And it feels great here during each of your turns. All artifacts we control are foods in addition to their other types. And you can take it up so whenever you gain life the first time each turn, you get a raccoon token. And then on the 3rd level, whenever you gain life the first time each turn, put a counter on each creature you control. So eventually we could level it up where we start growing our entire board. But I think at minimum, we really like that 2nd level to start getting a raccoon token every turn. So that way we have some creatures on board. We have things like alternate win cons, right? Test of Endurance says at the start of our turn, if we have 50 or more life, we win the game. This will force our opponents to deal with Test of Endurance or reduce our life total. Otherwise, we can definitely work our way towards winning the game. It's not going to be hard in a deck like this to just gain a lot of life. And if our opponents can't diminish our life total faster than we can grow it, I think Test of Endurance is just an eventual way for us to win the game. And then I like something like Trudge Garden. Whenever we gain life, we can pay 2. If we do, we make a 4/4 Fungus Beast with Trample. Again, just another way to turn our life gain into creatures, right? Into going wide and being a threat more than just, I gain life, this thing triggers. But it's important to know that Hurska makes food. We have other ways in the deck to make tokens, right, in food. But we also want to make sure that our food matter other than just sacrificing to get life, right? Jaheira can have them all tapped for a green mana or any of our other tokens. Peregrine Took says whenever we make 1 or more tokens, we make that many tokens plus a food instead. So we get extra food every time Hurska attacks. We can sack 3 foods to draw a card. That's a great ability, especially when we have so many food lying around. We can just start sacking them to draw cards. Rosie Cotton says whenever another token comes in, you put a counter on target creature you control. This is really helpful with some creatures that will make tokens when they have a counter put on them, and that leads to a nice loop where you can make a bunch of tokens that way. Yoshin Dissonance says whenever an artifact comes in under our control, we get to put a counter on target creature. That one's nice, helps out as we're making at least one food every turn. For the Common Good says we can make X target copies that are target of an X token you control, and those tokens get indestructible from the turn, and we gain a life for each of them. There's a lot of ways to look at this. You could do this on foods. You could do this on a lot of things. But I think since there is a part of our deck that cares about foods, we kind of want to do this on foods. So we get more foods, gain a bunch of life, get the triggers, and then have more foods to use for things like Night of the Sweet's Revenge, which will again let them all tap for green. So here's another copy of that Jaheira style effect for our deck. And then for 7 mana, we can sacrifice Night of Sweet's Revenge to give all of our creatures +X, where X is the number of foods we control. Which, again, if we're amassing those foods and not using them, there's a chance to turn it into a little bit of an Alpha Strike potential for our opponents. But again, I think with all the effects that we've seen, it's not going to be hard to get +1/+1 counters on our creatures, but we also have other ways to do it. A Johnny can give a counter to each of our creatures or gain us 3 life. This is actually a really great split between those abilities because there are going to definitely be turns where we just want the 3 life, and there are going to be turns where we want the counters. And so I like it for that. Also giving vigilance, meaning that our creatures could potentially attack and block. We'll play the classic ways to give creatures with counters on them extra ability. Battle Priest gives them lifelink. Absent Falconer gives them flying. Again, the lifelink is great and the one we want almost more than the flying, because then that means more life gain triggers, more abilities going off. But of course, flying can be great. For evasion, we got Envoy, the Ancestors there for Modern Horizons 3, giving all creatures with counters on them lifelink. So again, more life gain triggers, more of that. Kala, whenever we gain life, puts a counter on itself, and then when it attacks, each of our other creatures get a buff, where X is the number of counters on Kala, so a way to give ourselves a big buff going into combat. And then Scurry Oak, one of the cards that I talked about that makes a token when a counter gets put on it. This is a fun way to turn life gain, a card like oh my gosh, I just blanked on the name. A card like Rosy Cotton into a lot of squirrel tokens, which could trigger a lot of things. More life gain, right? With our Soul Sister effects. There's a lot of ways you could take this. This could actually, with a Soul Sister gown, again, gain us an near infinite life, right? As we just make a ton of tokens and get all that life gain. So you can see there's multiple ways to just gain an insurmountable amount of life that then our opponents have to deal with. Inspiring Call can draw a card for each creature we control with a counter on it, give them indestructible, a way to protect our board if there's a bunch of counters on the battlefield on our creatures. Gavany Township can tap to put a counter on each creature. And then Feldar Retreat gets to kind of play a dual role. Whenever a land comes in, we can either make a token or put a counter on each of our creatures and give them vigilance. I think both of those are really relevant effects, and it just depends on what situation we're in, on which we want more. Do we need a life gain trigger off a creature coming in? That way we get the cat. Otherwise, we spread the counters and get that vigilance, which is still helpful in combat when it comes to attacking, because at the end of the day we can gain all the life we want, but if we're not hurting our opponents, we're gonna eventually fall behind. And I think it's still good important to transition from defense to offense at some point. But I've said it before and I'll say it again, no deck's ever complete. This is my version 1.0 shot at Hurska. I think a lot of the key things you expect to see from life gain decks are here, and I think it will function well. But as we get into testing, I think it comes down to determining, are we trying to do too much? Is the token plus counters approach too much? Do we need to focus on one? Do we need to focus more on the other? And so my goal here with the cards to consider, mostly because all 3 of these are pricier cards, is to help you see where if you want to put just a little bit more budget into the deck, where we can make the deck even better for both. Archangel of Thune is a slam dunk in a deck like this. Whenever you gain life, you put a counter on each creature you control, basically allowing us to grow our board exponentially. Can be involved in some pretty fun combos as well, but otherwise it's just a big attacker that's in the air with lifelink. Nuka-Cola Vending Machine, you're going to see a lot very often in food-based decks because it can tap to make foods, or whenever you sack a food, you get to tap treasure. I think Nuka-Cola Vending Machine is a really good artifact, but the problem is just even the base printing of this card is over $20. And I think when you're trying to maximize your budget, $20 for one card can be hard, like the $35, $40 for Thune beside it. So I'd rather kind of take the money and get more redundancy of our effects than just one big splashy card. But if you have the budget to extend, I think the Nuka-Cola is worth it. Same thing with Innkeeper's Talent. Passing out a counter at the start of each of our combats protecting our creatures with Ward 1, and then level 3 basically becoming a doubling season type effect, doubling the amount of counters we're putting on things. I like all 3 of these cards, but trying to brew inside a budget on the show means that sometimes single cards need to come out to make sure we can get access to more of our budget to, get more redundancy and other effects, even though I really like all 3 of them. But let's get into our play test. Keeping a 3-lander with Test of Endurance, Farmer Cotton, Sword of Plowshares, and Farseeks. Farmer Cotton is a halfling that says when it comes in, we make X 1/1 halfling tokens and X food. So a great way to make both creature tokens and food, which is great. We love it. We'll play the Hushwood Verge. I think I'm going to probably look to go... Hurska is 3, right? So I think we go Plains here. That'll turn on the ability to tap for either the Hushwood Verge, and we'll just go ahead and play Farseek. Might as well just get ourselves ramping. I'm going to go for Lush Portico here because it'll give us that Surveil when it comes in. Let us just at least see what's on the top. Caduceus is great. It's a way to give Hurska lifelink. That way we're dealing damage and getting life back for it. But I think we're A-okay with that. Turn 4, I think I'll just put Hurska down since we want to get it down so it can start attacking to make us foods. And then leave up Swords to Plowshares just in case anything crazy happens between that and our next turn. We want to make sure that we have some interaction for our opponents. Rampage of the Clans is a really interesting card. We destroy all artifacts and enchantments, and for each permanent destroyed this way, the controller makes a 3/3 centaur. This is a way to turn all of our foods into 3/3s if we want to do that. I think this turn, there's a lot of routes we can go. I mean, Hurska is going to make me a food when it attacks, right? But we're not necessarily gaining life this turn. So I think I'm going to get the Caduceus down, keep up the Swords to Plowshares, and just go ahead and attack and make that food. Just so that way we have it on board, we can use it on a future turn for different things. And then Caduceus will easily be able to attach next turn. Again, if we didn't use the Plowshares, then that's fine. We'll just hold it in our hand. I think we attach Caduceus, right? And then get to attacking. It has lifelink, and then if we have 30 or more life, it gets +5/+5, indestructible, and prevent all damage dealt to it. Again, we should very much be ahead of our 30 life. So Hurska should be an 8/8 right now. Attack, make that food, gain us some life back, right? And now we're in great shape because now we've padded our life to a little bit. Hurska is now becoming a threat. It has indestructible, so it's not like somebody can just wipe the board and get rid of Hurska. Of course, still going to be weak to single target removal, but that's A-okay. I think we just continue to hold up the Plowshares, or we could hold up the food to gain some life if that's what we want to do. But I think otherwise, we're setting up our board state okay. Ideally, we'd want some more mana, right? But that's A-okay. I can think of a couple options of what we might want to do here. I mean, you could do something like Knight of Sweet's Revenge to come in and make a food and let our foods tap for mana, but I kind of want to get something like Angelica Chord down so we can start really paying off that. Test of Endurance, I guess, could be an argument here since we're probably at 45 or 46 life. We attack and force our opponents to have to deal with us. But I kind of feel like we should keep getting the value right down. So we'd go to attack and make a food, and then on end step, we'd make that angel. So now we're starting to get some more things on board instead of just Hurska, who's doing his job as an 8/8 with lifelink. But I think that we still want to start getting more board presence down. I'd like to pad my life total a little bit more before I put Test of Endurance down, just so that way there's more for our opponents to clear through. Man, no lands, huh? What a time to be alive. We're going to go ahead and, I think, get the test down now. Attack, make the food, gain the life, make the angel. And now, right, we're going to force our opponents to deal with the test. If they can't deal with the test, then the game's over. But if they can deal with the test, we're still up life. We're making angels. Remember that we only need to gain 4 life to make the angels, and so we can keep cracking foods to make the angels with Angelica Chord. So if someone were to just wipe the board, it's not like we're that far gone. We could still attach to Caduceus to one of the angels. We could still put other creatures down. It's not like we're completely SOL if they wipe the board here. But I think we've got a decent start set up. We can continue to play things in like a Lender or Farmer Cotton to get more things in that care about life gain. I would, we could easily just try to store up the foods and go for the Rampage. I think there's a lot of options from this one on this playtest, so we're going to stop. But I think other than completely bricking on mana, I think we did what we could for that playtest where we didn't see as much of it. Keeping a 3-lander with Heliod, Gormad's Talent, Caretaker class, a way to draw a card, right? Since we're making a food every time Hurska attacks, we're going to draw that way. And then Daxos for a little bit of a life gain. We'll get the Blossoming Sands in turn 1 and get that 1 life. Next, we'll play the Plains. I'm thinking Daxos, but I guess there is an argument for Gorman's talent, but I think it's just Daxos. Get it down, that way we could start gaining life whenever things come in, or die, which is not a bad option. 3 for Hurska. Go ahead and gain us another life. Now Hurska could start attacking next turn. We don't get the land here, which is not ideal, but we still have plenty of ways to gain life. I mean, I'm thinking either Heliod or Caretaker's Talent. I'm thinking Caretaker's Talent because we're going to attack, right? Make the food, and that can draw us. Maybe that hits us into a land. It doesn't, but I think this is a better way for us to potentially get this turn over turn and do it that way. Coming to the next turn, jeez. No land again. What a time to be alive. It almost makes me want to do something like Farseek just to guarantee another land comes in for next turn. We'll still get to draw off the Caretaker's Talent. I can Farseek and something like Speaker of the Heavens, so I think I'm just going to do that. We can't keep relying on nothing coming, right? If we see it happen over the course of a couple turns, we need to change our luck here, right? Get another land in for sure, and then just delay doing some more fun things this turn. We'll do that. Gain a life when Speaker comes in. Attack with Hurska, make the food, draw a card. And now next turn, right, we can start making angels potentially with Speaker of the Heavens, depending on what we can do. And we can just keep getting this party rolling, where we need 7 or more life, more than our starting life total, to make angels with Speaker of the Heavens. But again, we're gaining life whenever things come in. So I feel like we're in good shape. Well, Johnny could technically get us there this turn. Potentially. But I'm just trying to think what makes the most sense. We could do Jaheira. That would give us 2 green mana from the foods, which could get us into like something like Path of Bravery or Gormans. We could do Jaheira into Heliod, right? Which couldn't be bad. That way when we're gaining life, we're getting counters. That wouldn't be bad. We could do, Yoshin Dissident, and that, just trying to think. Johnny doesn't 100% get us to 7 more, so that doesn't automatically mean that Speaker of the Heavens is going to do that. Jaheira plus Heliod wouldn't either. Jaheira plus Path of Bravery, if we attack with these two, wouldn't. Or Heliod would not come down as a creature, so that would only get us to 46. I'm just trying to think if there's any other way I can think of right now to get to that more efficiently. I mean, yes, I could just sack the two foods, but I don't really want to do that. I want to try to commit more to the board if I can, right? So Jaheira, gain a life. That's just the 3 mana. Still like the idea of Heliod, right, to grow the board and get that party starting. But I could also see, something like Path of Bravery to gain a couple extra life this turn. I guess right now cracking one of the foods would technically get us to that, right? Get us to that. So I think we'll just do that, gain some life, go to combat, make a food with Hurska, draw a card, and then tap the Speaker of the Heavens for that angel. So that way we have that in now. And now we're getting our way across here. Here's something like Battle Priest we could start caring about. +1/+1s on creatures gaining more life. So I kind of like this. We've got a good kind of set part of our way going. Turn 7. Jeez. Still no lands, but we get a Soaring, which does help. I'm thinking Heliod, which 1, 2, 3, 4 won't come in as a creature. Path of Bravery, now Heliod's a creature, but not it coming in. And then that was 1, 2, 3 for the Path. 1, 2, 3 for Heliod. Just 2 mana left. I guess we could tap the Angel for a mana. But I think we're okay with that. Move to combat, attack with Hurska and Daxos. Make a food. Draw a card, gain 2 life. They're actually the trigger is going to be only 1 together. So Path of Bravery just makes 1 trigger, but we'll put that on Hurska just to grow it a little bit more. Again, we'll get to make the angel, which will get us another counter trigger. We'll put it on Speaker of the Heavens. Get that grassland in tapped. And I think our board state's looking pretty good. I mean, all we need is a nice payoff for Heliod to put counters on things, and we're in the zone. Remember that Battle Priest is going to start giving those things lifelink. I think I'd want to get that down next turn to start doing that. I guess we could use the Caretaker's Talent to make like another copy of an Angel or something, but I think we're in good shape here. I think our board state's really starting to shore up on what we want to see from this one. And again, all we need is just, in all reality, one way to turn our life gain into, or counters into something, you know, other than just putting the battle. I think putting the Battle Priest down does completely do what we want it to do, put the counters in the Angels so that way they can get in unblocked and really, really get some good damage in. And I think we're fulfilling, I think, what the deck wants to do. We just have a little bit of that awkwardness on the lack of mana like we did last time. But let me know, what do you think of Hurska? If you have another Selesnya life gain deck, I'd love to know what you think of Hurska versus your commander that you have. I think it's an interesting idea for a commander, making the foods on attack and allowing you to buff creatures when you gain life. I didn't do it much in the playtest, but I think there's a lot of options there. So I'd love to know what you think of it, and I will catch you guys next time.